What's going on, Star Wars fans?
Hello there.
We are here live with a recap of Andor. So, first of all, if you are on and you haven't watched it, we will be spoiling it for you. So, we have all watched it. We are going to talk about it, and we appreciate you guys jumping on here. I'd like to welcome Darth Plagueis Lives. Thank you for jumping on. Mike, a guy who loves Star Wars podcast. Derek from his podcast, and Nick and I from here. Derek has a podcast that he does if you haven't checked it out yet. Derek, you want to talk just a quick brief thing about it, and I'll let Mike do the same thing.
Yeah, Living with the Land Speeder, where we Star Warsify different Disney rides and attractions every episode.
Nice.
There you go.
Nice.
Elevator
And,
pitch.
If you haven't seen Mike's podcast yet, you got to go check it out. Mike has already gone and done a recap of all three. So he has been working on a little bit of sleep here, and we welcome him, and thanks for joining us.
Of course, yeah. Star Trek. I mean, Star Wars is great. We're gonna talk about some Andor. Captain Kirk was fantastic.
First thing I said when I saw you pop into this video, I was like, "How are you still awake or alive right now? You've been on."
Yeah, sleep is a mystery to me.
Yeah,
it eludes you.
Yes.
So, like I said, again, we've all seen it. If you are jumping on here, there will be some spoilers. So, I'll start. I thought it was fantastic. I think they did a great job jumping right in with that scene, even though a lot of it was from the trailer and stuff like that we had just seen. The whole Krennic situation room was fantastic. I know we didn't get to see him too much more for the next couple, but I think they're doing a great job with this. I love how they're bringing some of these other people in as well, and some of this political stuff is just starting to heat up, and I think it's really, really awesome. And again, we had some surprises with the rebels on that planet. We weren't sure, and I was telling Derek before we got on here, when they flew away and I saw that, I was just like, oh yes, hello Yavin 4, we're back.
That was so great. I was like yelling.
Yeah, it's really it's genius writing yet again on Tony Gilroy's part. But did you guys watch the classified thing that they posted like a couple hours after or whatever? They posted like a 10-minute video of Tony Gilroy and some of the actors explaining the first 3 episodes, or at least kind of explaining it. It's actually really good. It's on YouTube, I think. We might be able to watch it. I don't know. Whatever. But he pretty much explains not why they're on Yavin, but explains sort of his idea as to why they did that. And he's sort of like, this is Yavin 4 years before we see it in Rogue One. And in Rogue One, it's this massive rebel base. But right now, it's literally this group of rebels fighting amongst each other. And it's just crazy how far the rebellion grows in this short amount of time. And that's sort of what we're going to see across Andor Season 2. Because when you think about it, Rebels, one of my favorite shows, goes pretty much alongside this Andor show, like the same time period. And these characters and those characters are completely disconnected. I mean, there's a couple ties with Mon and Saw being in a couple episodes of Rebels. But other than that, they're completely disconnected. And they're both rebels. They're both parts of the rebellion. So we're going to see a bunch of different versions of the rebellion until it finally comes together in the end, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I saw probably what you're talking about, Mike. Someone had typed it out but put it in word form, and how it's a little bit of like a visual representation of these fractured rebels who think they're on the same, they're fighting for the same thing, but they hate each other, and they're almost a little embarrassing that they're doing rock, paper, scissors to settle like a dispute, and they just don't have anything going on. But you can tell by the end of this whole arc, which kind of culminates with Rogue One, they've got it together. Like you said, Yavin 4 is like built up. All that. I loved seeing that. I pointed at this. I did one of these at the screen when I saw the.
And all of that was, to me, it was more powerful as they're infighting, and Cassian is in there, like, trying to get water, and then he's like, you should probably set up a perimeter.
Yeah.
And like he's coaching them, and they are just oblivious. But it just shows, like you said, the progression of how things are going. But Ron and I were talking before we went live and saying, I was like, what did they just put another filler thing in here that it's not really going to make a big difference. And then when he flew away, I was like, you had me thinking that you were wasting my time.
Yeah,
You
I was
didn't.
concerned. Oh, I was big time concerned about that too. I was sitting there watching episode 2 going, this is called Andor. And I feel like the least important character right now is Cassian Andor, because all the stuff with Mon and Luthen is great. All the stuff with Dedra and Krennic was great. Even the stuff with Dedra and Cyril, which, oh my God.
Oh, so awesome. And the
It's
mom,
so awesome.
and the mom getting shut down.
Yeah, but Cassian's pretty much like, what are we doing here? And the fact that it is revealed that it's Yavin, it makes you think about the whole first 2 episodes completely differently now.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and when we were talking, I'm wondering if how he already knew to get there and who these rebels actually are. So is it Luthen that sent him there, or and how is this going to become Yavin 4 like we already know it? Is it going to be Cassian saying, hey, you know what, when you sent me over here, this could be a good place to do it, or how we're going to get there is going to be interesting, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, plus at one point Cassian even he figures out who this group is, and then he says we've supplied you with stuff. They're just a different sort of group of rebels, and they've even communicated with each other at one point. And that's sort of how I guess spread out the rebellion is, because they're not going to beat the Empire all this spread out, so they have to come together, and that's what we see in Rogue One, and that's all the people on Yavin 4.
Yeah, they can't even risk telling each other who they know.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
they don't trust each other at all. Nobody's formed an alliance yet.
Yeah,
but
yeah, it was pretty epic when they did start fighting. I was just like, okay, I thought they were on the same team, and
yeah,
they were sort of, but now they're figuring it out and what's going on. And with Cassian, like Derek had said, he's just like the only one that sort of has any idea of survival or what's happening here. So it was interesting to see sort of the rules being reversed when Cassian is just in there as a prisoner, and he's going to survive longer than most of these people probably are.
Yeah, and that was cool about episode 1 was it's literally titled 1 year later. So it's telling you right away there's been a pretty big time jump since we last met the character of Cassian. And right away when he's stealing that TIE fighter and he's talking to the girl, I think her name was Naya or something, he's already so much more of a leader and more of he's not just the beginning level rebel that we see in the first season. He's already sort of, I guess, mentoring this girl and giving her some advice and all this stuff. He's already come such a long way since the end of season 1. In that 1 year gap, which we're going to see in between each week here, is just going to continue to grow, and Cassian becoming more and more of a leader, which is going to be pretty cool. And yeah, when he's on Yavin, he's literally leading these group of rebels that have no idea what they're doing. It's awesome.
Yeah, and you can tell there are various parts in the first season where he doesn't really care. He just wants to get his and live his life. Is not necessarily out there to be a rebel. And you can tell as soon as we start this season, he's in it for the cause. And his issues are now that he's not. It's not that he's not interested in the cause. His issues are now still his impulsivity, and all that kind of thing. But I'm excited to see where he goes too.
But I'm also wondering when, how are we going to find out, or will we find out, how did he get into the position of a test pilot? Is that going to be a comic book or a graphic novel, or is that going to be something in a short film, or is it just going to be left up to interpretation?
Yeah, I mean, it's almost you could go back and do a book of the year between, because Cassian growing to become that leader in the rebellion. I'm sure they had a bunch of missions, but they seem to be pretty connected. When Luthen and Clea are at the wedding, and Clea's like, I got to get out of here because I can't communicate with everybody. She's talking about contacting Bix too. So they're all sort of in communication at this point a year later.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see how they do that year to year, because again, there was several things that we need answers to at the end of the 3rd episode. When Cinta's driving away, it's like, okay, so a year from now, is he going to be gone? And if he is, are we going to figure out, are they going to tell it? Not that it matters too much, but what happened and how did it happen? And obviously I think Cinta was the one that took Clara away from the wedding back to, you know, their shop so that she
Yeah.
could get on and do communications, you know, because obviously she's still
Mhm.
part of that, you know, cell that they have there. And I think it was interesting how Cassian sort of that he was considering that the wheat field's his home now. He's like, you know, I got to
Yeah.
go home, which is
Yeah.
interesting. So obviously he did do a bunch of different missions, but how much time, you know, in between did he have? Was he continuously gone for 3 or 4 or 5 months at a time, or was he doing just little ones back and forth? Because he is stepping up into that leadership role, even though we know there's going to be a time when Luthen in one of the trailers says to him, you know, you have to act like a leader or whatever he says. So again, he's still teaching him as well, which I think is going to be cool to watch, because we're going to have to see them together, and we're still going to have to see how most of these people don't make it to Rogue One.
Yeah. The coolest thing coming into season 2 for me, my favorite character from season 1 was Luthen, and he's still probably my favorite character in season 2 so far. But he's gonna have to die. Like, he's one of the characters, like a few of them, like Bix, could maybe survive, and they have some sort of just different story in Rogue One or whatever. They could maybe write around that. But a character like Luthen, who's been talking about this sunrise he'll never see type deal, he's probably gonna die. And honestly, what these first 3 episodes sort of, I guess, are alluding to me is that people are gonna quickly almost turn on Luthen. You see this, if Take Homa really is leaving the party there to go die, like to just get killed by Cinta,
Yep.
Mon Mothma is not gonna like that. Like, they were best friends growing up and all this stuff. Like, she's not gonna be happy
I don't know.
about that.
She's feeling pretty good by the end of the episode.
Man,
That's also
we'll talk
true.
about that too,
Yeah.
because what a
Yeah.
babe she turned into at the end of that episode.
Yeah. So in one of the trailers, there's 1,000 of them. In one of them, I know Mon Mothma is talking to what looks like Luthen, and she's pretty much saying, like, I don't know if I can trust you, or something like that. Like, something along those lines of, like, I don't know if I can even trust you anymore, or something like that. So I think what's going to happen here is Mon Mothma is going to start not trusting Luthen, and maybe some other people aren't going to start trusting Luthen, because Vel clearly doesn't trust him anymore after she's keeping Cinta away from her, and it's that whole conflict there too. That whole walking up the side of the mountain on the hike thing. It's a very almost throwaway scene, but she's talking about, like, Luthen's not telling me the truth. He's keeping secrets from us and all this stuff. And she's like, well, we got to do what you got to do for the rebellion. And she's like, and Mon Mothma's response is like, yeah, but we also have to live through what we have to do. Like, we got to survive this whole thing. And I think that's maybe alluding to Vel dying, but also alluding to this whole mistrust with Luthen. And that's just going to keep growing with all these different characters until who the hell knows.
Especially if Vel dies.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
Mon's not going to be into that. And I could even see Luthen just saying, screw it. Me and Saw will handle all this stuff. And that could be the break between the alliance we see in Rogue One and Saw Gerrera. I guess the factions that are going to split into 2 and be the 2 big ones are us and Saw. And then, you know, so we see what happens to Saw's group. But
yeah, because Saw is an extremist, and in Rogue One, he's really just, like you said, one of the only pieces of the rebellion that's not really together on Yavin, and maybe Luthen was a part of that. I don't know. Yeah.
And once we see him, which hopefully we'll see him in the next series of shows, but it's going to be 2 years for Saw that we've seen, you know, because we didn't see him. Obviously, he's still doing his thing, but we didn't see him this year, let's say, in last night's 3 episodes. So it'll be interesting, you know. And or if we don't do that and we go on to the next, it'll be 3 years. So again, everybody in these episodes is just in these years that go on are building up their skills, their secrecy, everything else to protect this rebellion that they're going to do. And hopefully, as we all know, with A New Hope, you know, it ends well, but
and talking about, like, some of the twists and stuff in this, I want to talk about Perrin for sure, of, like, he was easily the most hated character of the first season, not because of, you know, acting or something. They did a great job making him very repulsive. And then, like, in this season, he's already, like, redeeming himself. Then he had that speech and it was like, do we like you?
Yeah.
Because I kind of feel like we might not hate you anymore.
Well, he's got the very much like what you want to believe in that time. Like, yeah, I would love to get hammered on Chandrilla and look for joy and just take pleasure in the day or whatever.
Yeah.
But I got, the weight of the universe breathing down my neck because they know I'm about to, start this rebellion. Like he's what everyone will like, sure, that'd be great, but I can't be that, instead of like last season, like you said, he just sucks. And
Yeah.
now you're like, oh, this guy's just ignorance is bliss. He's just, he'll go right into the arms of the Empire if he can. It's like, yeah, whatever.
Right. And now I'm like, will he?
Yeah.
Because now I
Well,
have questions.
yeah, because we know Mon Mothma leaves the Senate and eventually goes to Yavin 4 in Rogue One, but Perrin's not there. Her daughter's
Right.
not there. So the question of what happens with them two will be pretty interesting.
I think they would easily, especially based on last season, they'd easily disown her in a heartbeat if the Empire
Well,
was
the
like,
daughter's going to for sure.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
the daughter, they had that moment, especially when she was crying about, he's a child and this stuff. And she's, you could tell. And so Mon goes in there and said, you don't have to do this. And she's like, I wish you were drunk. It's like,
Yeah.
whoa.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
brutal.
That was a great line. That was that whole scene. Cause I'm like, wow, she's really showing this to her daughter and like pouring her heart out. Like, you don't have to do this. And then that line, I was like, okay.
Yeah, and that's almost like Mon Mothma debating on whether or not she should be going through with all this because she's just marrying off her daughter to make sure that she's safe and make sure the
Mhm.
rebellion's safe. So it's almost like her putting it
'cause
on her
she's gonna
daughter,
lose.
but having sort of second thoughts on her whole situation, especially with what's going on with Tacoma.
Yeah, and can
Yeah.
can I ask you guys just to clarify something? So when Takehoma's pissed at her at the wedding about how all the foundation's up and running, all of her accounts are unfrozen, and he says, I forget her new in-law's name,
Davos.
Davos.
Mhm.
Davos seems to have gotten what he wants.
Yeah.
Is he saying that like, oh, all of a sudden your accounts are good and I lost a bunch of money, or did he actually do what she asked him to do?
Well, I think it's more so like in this transaction, Davos got a pretty big reward,
Right.
and I didn't. Like
Yeah.
he pretty much explains like, well, I think a lot of it is sort of is him and his wife are splitting up. Like there's a lot of things going
Innuendo.
to it,
Yeah.
but and he talks about his investments and how they're going sour because of all this rebel activity. Because what we learn in season 1, he doesn't want to work with Mon Mothma because he thinks that their political beliefs are very different. Because he's sort
Mhm.
of a rebel,
Yeah.
to an extent, and Mon Mothma isn't, at least to the public, and that's when she reveals that she is. So Tay, I think, has lost a lot of investments and stuff like that because of his rebel activity, and I think he was hoping that maybe he would get more of a reward in all this process, which he didn't. So
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and
So
then
I just
he's
wanna
saying
say-
like that he's been meeting with dude, and he's like, I'll just talk to him next week.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Ooh.
yeah,
Well, that's
maybe
the thing too. Is next week we're not going to see that. Like Ron
Right.
was saying, there's a year jump till next week. So that week meeting, it might not even happen because he might die when Cinta takes him away. We have no idea. But we won't really like. I'm guessing in the next batch of episodes, there'll be a conversation between Luthen and Mon where Mon's like, "You did this to Tacoma," like
Mhm.
just sort of telling us what happened without
Right.
sort of giving us the whole story.
I feel like seeing Cinta with him at the end just pretty
Yes.
much tips everybody off what's about to
Yeah.
happen. So
Like, yeah, that's
Yeah.
what's going to happen.
Yep.
So
It's
if y'all
an
are
easy
just joining us-
explanation. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. No, you're good. If y'all are just joining us, we got spoilers here from Andor. We're going over the first 3 episodes. Last night we're recapping them. Thanks for joining us. Kit Fistu, Emperor. Who else we got on here? Pam.
B-Man.
B-Man. Thank you all for joining. If you got any questions or any thoughts, what do you guys think of Andor last night on a scale of 1 to 10? Let's go. 10 being the best and 1 being the worst. Did you guys enjoy it? And what'd you think? Throw some comments up there as we continue to talk about it.
And
Well, yeah,
I'm going to
definitely.
give. Go ahead.
Definitely throw that in the chat. For me, I think all 3 episodes across the board, probably around like I was saying this on my live stream, and I think I even bumped it even more up. It's like an 8.7, 8.8. I think this is a great start. For me, episode 2 was the weakest one, but episode 3 really ties it together. I understand now. I get it why they're doing these three episodes a week, because if you really look at it, in that first episode was the first week, second episode was the second week. By the third week, people would be losing their minds going, this show is Andor all over again. But because it's the 3-week release, it all sort of fits together perfectly. It's really just one big movie telling the story of 4 different stories pretty much at the same time. So probably a 8.9, 8.8 out of 10. I think, and what I see from these first 3 episodes is the future that they're setting up with Gorman and all this stuff to be that 98 out of 100 on Rotten Tomatoes. Like that, I can see that in the future. I can see it. And this is just the beginning.
Yeah, I'd say I'd give that first episode an 8 and the second one like a solid 7. But that last episode for me was like a 9.5, almost a 10.
I gave it a 9.5.
Especially the last scene, like the whole last 10 minutes with the fight and everything going on, and then also with the wedding scene and the dancing scene. I don't know what it was about the dancing, but they nailed it. They crushed it. Of like everybody finally let loose and all of the problems were gone. And like I said it a little bit ago, like Mon Mothma literally let her hair down. And that was symbolic, and let her hair down. And it's like, wow, like she doesn't have that stuffy, strong look. Like she, it's very feminine look as she's dancing and enjoying the night.
After a few shots.
Yeah.
That's okay.
What was in those, by the way?
I want to know. They're going to be at Oga's Cantina soon.
Yeah.
Hopefully by the time I'm down there.
Well, I will say too, it's sort of poetic in a way. The song that's playing is the same one from Nemos in season 1, where Cassian is on the beaches and he gets arrested by the Empire. So it's almost like Cassian getting arrested in that first season. It brings him to the light of, I gotta fight back against this Empire because they're just pure evil. And then when we're hearing the song in season 2, it's Mon Mothma going, okay, I'm letting my hair down. I'm going full rebel now. Like this is it's all, the floodgates are opening. Well, both seasons.
Yeah, and I think I said it on like the last time we did a live and talked about Andor. Is like when we see the wedding and how cool it's gonna be. All this cool stuff is gonna be during some really bad stuff. So we're gonna see all this fun fanfare and get intermittent scenes of not a fun time somewhere else.
Yeah, we lost Brasso.
Yeah, and Mon Mothma, I know she's letting her hair down, but she is just completely numbing herself to what she knows is about to happen, which is the fact that she knows Luthen's killing Tay, probably. She knows it's about to get really real. She hates that this wedding is happening. So it's like, F it. I don't know I don't know if we're going for F-bombs on the show yet, but she's saying screw it, and it goes for it. And it, like you said, Derek, it was like so like great and almost kind of unsettling in a good way. Like, oh man, this lady's going nuts while all these bad things are happening, and whatever. But as far as my rating goes, I'm gonna give it a composite 9, simply because I've been pestering you guys about getting more politics in Star Wars from their perspective, and I love the creepy Situation Room meeting with Krennic, with the propagandists who are morons, and the mining guy who's a weirdo, and then Dedra's like, send some rebels in there, and you got like it's, and Krennic being like, I don't know, I just loved it, and I loved all the scheming. I love that Andor is an exception to Star Wars, where a lot of the dialogue is not face value, where you have to think about it. They're saying multiple things in one line. They're kind of like showing themselves and not showing themselves. You have to think about it a little bit because it's a little off-putting. I thought that was great. And had the action not happened in the 3rd episode, I still would have been cool with it.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, episode 1 is the only one where Krennic is in, but that scene where he's sort of explaining all that was fantastic. I thought, because we got sort of a clip from that scene before the show aired, I thought it was going to be about the Death Star. That whole meeting was going to be about the Death Star, and Dedra was going to be brought on board. I didn't think it was going to be about Gorman, and the whole like 50s commercial style thing with the spiders and stuff was awesome.
Good.
And then it really shows what the Empire and what, I guess, always talk about the real world and history, but what the Empire does, and that's propaganda. Like, they can make it so the rest of the galaxy thinks that these Gormans are like the worst, and we can just do whatever we want on Gorman because people won't really care if we spread the message the right way. It's all about the propaganda. So it'll be very interesting to see how we go from that to the Gorman Massacre itself. Now, people have been bringing up to me that the Gorman Massacre in canon takes place in 2 BBY, and it was made very clear that this was 4 BBY. So that would be next week is 3, and it wouldn't be until 2 weeks where we see the Gorman Massacre.
I think that's probably right, though, because all we saw was the idea. We still have to see them actually plan it and, fight over it, and see Dedra actually take the job. You know,
it seems a little far out from Rogue One, though.
Yeah.
If we're talking Gorman being the thing that gets Mon Mothma tossed out of the Senate, that might line up, though.
Yeah.
I mean, that's 2 more years, though.
Yeah, and what would happen
like this?
Well, she's good now. They're not as on her right now.
But I think she's not that she's going to make a mistake, but I think she's more okay. I'm in it now.
Mm-hmm.
And also,
I think it'll be interesting.
I remember Tony Gilroy saying that the Gorman Massacre covers 5 episodes, which doesn't really make much sense because it's 3 episodes and then a year gap. So I'm guessing in the next 2 episodes, we will see Gorman. I don't think the massacre will happen until the following week, but I'm guessing we're going to see like Dedra setting up shop there maybe or something like that. And then it doesn't happen until a year later. But Gorman will be in 5 episodes from what he told us.
So I want to add something you said, Mike, about the Gorman meeting.
Yeah.
The other thing that's so like evil and gripping about that meeting is, one, not even the people in the room know what it's for. It's for the Energy Initiative. It's absolutely for the Death Star. But he's calling it, limitless, unlimited energy,
unlimited power. He literally said unlimited power.
And they're gonna torch Gorman and destroy an entire culture, kill a bunch of people, probably collapse the planet for something to coat the freaking coat the walls of the reactor room with. It's not even to get to weaponize it. It's not even. It's to this would be a really good coating for the reactor lenses or whatever. It's not even for this. I mean, an entire civilization wiped out so you can put fiberglass up, and it's
but they just show their lack of empathy with saying 850,000 people there. We can move them, and if they don't want to, it's very much that Avatar kind of feeling where it's there's trees all over. Go to another tree.
Haven't they always seemed kind of snobby?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, it's the same thing almost. They use the Death Star for practice tests on the capital city on Jeddah. They just don't really care about anybody. They just kill innocent lives like it's nothing. But I will say, when Krennic's talking about this whole energy initiative that Palpatine has, it's the most important thing to Palpatine. He had a meeting with Palpatine about it, and he's putting this whole secret boardroom together. Is this the pre-Kyber crystal times, before they realized that the Kyber crystals could power the Death Star, or do they already know that?
See, that was interesting for me as well, because they're talking about this fiber or whatever.
Calcite.
This mineral that they can use. So I wonder if that's how they do start out, and then they figure out the Kyber crystals, or what.
Yeah.
But
I would say no. I bet they haven't been able to. Same with Galen Urso, haven't been able to house it. they know. I bet they know like Kyber can do the thing, but like it'll blow the whole station up right now if we let that thing fly. Because even in not to get all the, I don't think Tony Gilroy reads the comics or anything, but like Palpatine's already amassing his own kyber crystals in the comics, like mounds of them. So like he knows that they can be weaponized, but I don't think they've figured out how to make it work like on a fire up the oven whenever I want basis.
Well, I will say, and you say that Tony Gilroy doesn't read the comics, and I'm sure he doesn't. But the funniest thing to me is that, like, obviously the Dawn of the Jedi movie is going to come out eventually. We've gotten 2 mentions now of the Rakatan Empire in Andor. Nowhere else in live action has that ever been mentioned. This massive empire from 25,000 years ago. And it's been mentioned now twice in Andor. And it's like this show about rebels and the Empire. It's not really much about the lore building or the Force of the Jedi. It's giving us just these weird, crazy lore building things that it's like it's so crazy. From the gallery to all these Rakatans, it's pretty.
I thought to myself that twice is not a lot for anything, but it's a lot for that word.
Yes,
and it's almost like it seems a little odd for it to come in this show. It's almost like a slow drip to get you used to the word in the future.
Exactly. That's sort of the weird thing when I look back at like now that Dave Filoni is chief creative officer, it's like how much of that is he throwing into other projects to sort of plant the seeds and for hopefully future endeavors,
Oh yeah, well, and that's what me and Derek were talking about that before we came on. I was like, we can do this all about Andor. We haven't even touched on Celebration yet, and everything else that's coming out. So I mean, we're gonna have to do another one just on that stuff because that all that stuff coming out is amazing as well. But my take on the whole 3 episode, I like where they're going. I like that. I think we're gonna have a storyline, obviously, of the political part of it. And then we're also going to get to see what's going on with these characters. And that's what I love about Star Wars, where you can have 3 or 4 different stories going on all at once, and they switch back and forth. And obviously Tony Gilroy has done a great job with that in reference to watching the other Star Wars movies or the originals and things like that. I think it's really cool that he has taken that and we still get to see those different stories throughout here. And all of them keep our interest. Yeah, the whole thing with I can't think what's her name, but it was just a little creepy,
with Bix.
Yeah.
Well, and I wanted to talk about that too. Like, I know that's kind of a mixed bag online with some people like that was not necessary. To me, when you're talking politics and you're talking like all of the turmoil going on, you're gonna have these skeezy guys that are using their power to do things like that.
Absolutely. And when you look at the Empire too, not to cut you off, just real quick, the Empire is always supposed to be evil, and not that they haven't been evil, but it's proving that the point that when Bix, I honestly feel like it's setting up that Bix is going to do some pretty horrible things this season, like horrible to the Empire. Like in a very short clip from a trailer, we see what looks to be Dr. Gorst being tortured by the same machine that he used on Bix in season 1. So I think that Bix might do some terrible things in this season, and that's sort of setting up the fact that, well, we already knew the terrible things happened to her, but so many bad things have happened to her, and she's sort of on a revenge tour.
Yeah, for sure.
And then also, she brings up, and she was doing this out of safety for herself, but saying, "Oh, my husband's off planet," which we know there's no husband. But then with Cassian saying, "I need to go home." I know they're not married, but is there some? They build up a lot of tension in the first season, even though she had Tim Carlo or whatever.
Yeah.
But man, I don't know.
Yeah, I think the whole husband thing, I don't think they're married per se, but there has been a year. So it's like we know that there's going to be some sort of relationship there. And
she knew Cassian would be back.
Yeah.
And she did keep saying that, like, oh, he will be back. And again, I'm not saying that they're married. I'm just wondering if there's some like little seeds of more to their relationship that's coming.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll piggyback off you, Derek. I understand the mixed bag of whether or not that scene was necessary. I think if you really want to deliver the story that Andor is delivering, I wasn't expecting it, but it makes sense to me. Because, these guys are rolling in and doing a census, and whatever. And there's always this underpinning to what the Empire does in these shows and stuff is like, oh, it's an occupation, but at worst, which is still pretty bad, you see them like shoot a couple people who are like insurgent or whatever, and you're like, oh man, that's terrible. But there's a lot more. I mean, that's like, British soldiers in the Revolution breaking into people's homes style stuff that happens in the world all the time. That's horrible. And sometimes in Star Wars, we get a little too much of the bumbling, overconfident officer. And like the reality is that this is comprised of dudes like that. And it's, I'm shocked that it was in there, honestly, where we've taken the full step. I think, you throw a couple of swear words in there, nobody really cares. But like when you get into that stuff, like we're now in the adult era of Star Wars.
They said the word.
Yeah,
They said the word.
Don't say it here.
No, we are not.
There was no mistaking what was happening either.
Yeah,
right. And I could see that being like a really tough thing to watch for a lot of people. It was weird for me too. But
honestly, my whole thing was it's yet again just more genius writing. But in season 1, Bix is getting tortured by Dedra and Gorst, and she can't really fight back. In this scenario, we get to see her fight back, and she kills the guy. So that's, first of all, awesome. But the crazy cool part about the writing was in the opening scene where Bix and all of them are on this new farming planet that we've never seen before. The opening scene is this POV shot of this person walking into the room, and then he comes across the mirror, and it's Dr. Gorst, and it's a nightmare, but it's a great sequence. And then he grabs her legs, and she wakes up screaming. But the whole jump scare of him going in front of the mirror, and then 2 episodes later, that creepy guy's in the house. We're calling him Creepo. Creepo, he's in that same mirror. So it's like almost the parallels of the same sort of just genius writing. And then Bix gets to kill him. And Bix even kills the other guy too, which is great too. But it also provides a place for Bix to be in a storyline for Bix. And we haven't even touched upon it yet. How far are we into this live stream? We haven't even touched upon it yet. Brazos dies. And while he dies, Bix is fighting for her life over here. Cassian is in a TIE fighter shooting everybody down. And that storyline, although it's great and it's going to have a huge payoff with Bix in the future where she gets her sort of revenge this season, Brazos on the other side of the farm is dying. And that's going to be a huge catalyst for the rest of the season because it was Cassian's best friend and obviously Bix's friend too. And yeah, I mean, Brazos dying was sort of a theory that me and my live chat were meddling about a couple days before the show started. And I never really thought about it before. But when they released that new scene, they literally showed the scene, like they released the TIE fighter escape scene. They also released the scene where Brazo gets on the speeder and starts going away, and a stormtrooper aims at him, and then it cuts off.
Holy, yeah.
I was like, well, what if he dies there? And it makes sense. It's a great plot device. Like Brazo is a sort of a minor character in season 1, and now he's important.
But he's loved,
right?
Exactly.
Well, when that other farmer handed him that book thing and said, I was like, he's done.
Yep.
Yeah.
He's cooked. That guy's compromised. And I loved that they made that pretty obvious. It wasn't like this guy's gonna be a stand-up guy for the rebellion. It's like, nah, he's a weak guy, he's a farmer, he's just trying to save his family and save his own back.
Yeah, that's going to be a pretty important too, because going down the line, it's who you can and can't trust, and pretty much you can't trust anybody at this point.
Yeah. Obviously, they trusted him, and he didn't come through with it.
Well, and I think that trust is also with the big scene again. Is they've been building this a rebellion based on oppression, and yes, they're killing people and all this stuff, but I think they needed another piece of that puzzle as to why so many people want that. So if you're seeing that side of those officers, that they're coming in and doing those kind of things,
Yeah.
now you have a whole nother reason for people to be like, we're done with this.
Yeah.
We can't do this.
Well, and I don't mean to sound all like artsy or anything, but that scene is essentially what the Empire does all the time on a planetary scale. They go into these vulnerable places, and I'm not going to use the word, but they basically do that to entire civilizations without a thought, just to make a few ships or something. They're about to do it to Gorman.
They're about to go to Gorman.
So, I mean, it's like the most extreme way to show just kind of the way they operate. And like you said, Derek, you need to get into the headspace of these people who are willing to burn everything and do horrible things themselves and still be in the right.
Because like I was joking about it, but Andor's like a cold-blooded murderer, but the people he's murdering are sort of the bad guys, so you don't feel so bad. But yeah, you're right, you got to be able to do what the bad guys do to win the war.
That's Luthen's sacrifice. He's condemned to the tools of his enemy to defeat them.
Exactly.
And he knows he's never going to live to see the outcome.
Yes.
So it's like,
and I mean, when you really think about it, Luke Skywalker kills like 1 billion people blowing up the Death Star, but
what a monster he is.
I know, what a terrible guy.
I mean, that's why I'm all Sith. I mean, come on.
Well, I think what we see in Andor now is becoming more clear, because in Rogue One, it's almost like, dude, you're an asshole. You are this cold-blooded killer but now we see as what's going on with what happened with his mother, and then also now Brasso. Obviously, we know some of these other people that are important in his life are either going to be gone somewhere else or they're going to die because they're not in Rogue One. So you can see where he's going to start to switch over into that asshole mode, and I got to do what I got to do for this rebellion. And then once Jin gets back in there again and he starts to see, hey, you know what, we need to come together, and I'm going to not be that asshole as much to everybody, because obviously I can trust her now, and she sees what I see. And obviously we all know what happens in Rogue One, but I thought that was sort of cool. And I think that's what we're going to see, is him just become more and more, upset with the Empire, as we see him in Rogue One, when he talks about, he gets so upset about he's been fighting this since he was 6 years old and she doesn't know what he's gone through. So now we're going to see what he's gone through to be the person that he is at this time.
And we're going to see the severity of the situation completely change too, like within the 4 years. Because, sorry if this gets a little long, I'll keep it under a minute. But like, I think we all I do at least, I don't know about you guys, I take the Death Star for granted, because the first thing I ever saw was it get blown up, and everyone's cool with it. The Death Star is like the final linchpin to like mask off for the Empire. Like, screw you guys, mask is off. We dissolved the Senate, don't need it. If you didn't already know, you didn't have a say, you don't. And if you don't, I'm going to go to this beloved planet in the freaking core who you all thought were safe, and I'm going to blow it up.
Yeah.
There you go. Like, it's all supreme. And as soon as they start finding out that there's something, that changes the severity of the situation, because like, supposedly, we all think Mon Mothma is going to get kicked out, right, of the Senate.
Yeah.
She's only going to get kicked out because he doesn't have the legitimacy to just like dissolve the Senate yet. The Death Star gives him the legitimacy to say, I don't need any more like agreement. So the severity of the situation is needs to change from like, now we need to get together and like amass money, to, oh my God, we got to do something now because this is getting crazy.
Yeah.
And that's my spiel. But yeah, I think I take the Death Star for granted, because we see 5 iterations of it across the Star Wars universe. Like, oh, okay, another planet killer. But like, it's a very real thing that no one expects, and that should not have been at risk for the Emperor. Like, it should not have. They have every reason to believe that they won, and then we obviously know what happens. But
yeah, well, sort of piggybacking on that, we see through the marketing that the Death Star and Krennic will be a big part in the second season. Like, we see it a bunch of times in the trailers, and even characters like Clea in some of the trailers are saying they have a weapon. Like, people know that there's something big going on in the background over with the Empire. Maybe they don't know it's the Death Star specifically, but they know that there's something. And the way that they're going to use the Death Star in this second season will be very interesting. It's going to be sort of a scare tactic without being there, because people can't see it, or at least Cassian himself can't see it in Mon Mothma. But maybe some characters could see it or know about it and then die before they get the message back or something. I'm not too sure how they're going to use it. But either way, yeah, the Death Star is a big, big deal. And because there's so many different variations of it past the first one, it becomes less of a big deal. But the Empire pretty much thinks they won because they have the Death Star. Now, that brings up Galen Erso. Galen Erso, I just rewatched Rogue One just to sort of get prepared for Andor season 2, and I wrote down a bunch of stuff about like notes, sort of time slots where certain words were said that could allude to something in season 2. But the opening scene for Cassian, in that alleyway with the guy who has a hurt arm or whatever, in that scene, the guy with the hurt arm, I think his name is Tivik or something, he tells him that they're making a super weapon, a planet-killing weapon. And there's a pilot on Jeddah. He's defected. He's all this information about Galen Erso. And Cassian knows who Galen Erso is. I can guarantee you right now, he does not know who Galen Erso is. So at some point between now and Rogue One, he has to know who that character is. And the only reason he would is if he has either some interaction with him or something to do with the Empire. Because right now, Galen Erso works for the Empire, building the Death Star. So somehow, some way, that connection needs to be drawn. But there's a bunch of stuff in Rogue One, because they talk about how it's going to change Rogue One forever. There's a bunch of stuff in Rogue One that can be changed with the second season.
And we haven't talked about Clea very much, and you mentioned her. I love the style of her hair. It gives that that old throwback as she's using like a switchboard style communication. And I think it was genius, because she's the communication expert. That is what she's there for. And having that little kind of throwback with her style and the way she looks most of the time if she doesn't have a cloak on or whatever. But then the switchboard styling of how they're doing the communications, and it makes it very rebel-like. It's very primitive. And I think that she's going to have such a massive role in this next set of episodes. I'm excited to see what that is, though.
Yeah. Okay, this is on topic, obviously, but I literally have on my phone the notes that I took for Rogue One. You guys want to hear them?
Yeah.
Okay, so the opening scene, Cassian, first scene, knows who Galen Erso is, and said that he came as quick as he could because the guy in the alleyway is waiting for him. So we know that this second season leads directly into Rogue One, meaning he's literally going to be on his way to that place, to that alleyway. So whatever took him so long to get there, whatever delayed him, that event will probably be shown to us. One thing really cool, I've even put timestamp, 16 minutes. Mon Mothma says Saw Gerrera left the rebellion after giving them problems to deal with. So we don't really know much about Saw's story. We know he's all mangled up. He doesn't even have his legs in Rogue One. When he walks in, he's got 2 metal legs. So we don't know what happens to Saw, and that will be revealed in Andor. But Mon Mothma says that he gave us a bunch of problems to deal with for the rebellion. So whatever he does will be pretty cool in season 2. And obviously we haven't seen Saw yet in season 2. Cassian says it's the first prison he has ever been in when he's captured by Saw and his men. He says that to I think the blind guy. Chirrut.
Chirrut.
Yes. he says that's the first prison he's ever been in. I mean,
That's
he's been in season 1. He was in Narkina, but maybe he's lying. I don't know. But whatever. That was just a weird thing.
Yeah.
Galen Erso says to Krennic, "You'll never win," and Krennic's response is, "Of where have I heard that before?" I don't know where he's ever heard that before, but maybe he heard it in Andor season 2.
Did he? I can answer. I think doesn't Lyra, his wife, say it to him before they shoot her?
Oh, maybe. Yeah, you're right. Okay, never mind. But even still, Cassian says, "You're in shock. You're looking for somewhere to put it. I've seen this before." So this is when Jin is confronting him because she's like, "You were going to kill my dad." And he was like, "No, I wasn't. What are you talking about?" And he's like trying to convince her that she's in shock and he's seen it before. So possibly, again, something that could happen in season 2. And in that same scene, he says, "You're not the only one who lost everything. We assume that Bix is going to die. And of course, Brazo already died and his mom already died. He's lost everything." And that's more evidence of that. About an hour and 17 minutes into the movie, it's a scene on Rogue One with all the different rebels in the room, literally all different sort of sections of rebellions. From Admiral Radius, who at Star Wars Celebration, there was a trailer shown to the people there that he was in it. So we know a bunch of Rogue One characters are going to be in it, but that scene specifically with all those different rebels and sort of side characters, if you will, a lot of those characters could be in Andor season 2 because their appearances wouldn't be too like, "Oh my God, this is crazy," like a Vader or a Palpatine. So I think a lot of those characters could be involved for sure. And then I just wrote, which is one of my favorites, is the Ghost is in Rogue One with Chopper, and then over the loudspeaker you hear them say, "General Syndulla, please report." So that was all I got. But the coolest thing to me is the Saw Gerrera stuff.
I got something for you on that then. Sorry, my dog's growling in the back. So I was thinking, we brought it up earlier, but we didn't. We kind of moved on. But my thoughts are that Dedra gets a lot of attention from Krennic in this whole Gorman project. Would we all agree on that? Like, he's a little more interested in what she wants to do. And she's been told by her other boss, her real boss, to drop the Axis thing. But I think Krennic is going to go for it. I think Krennic's going to be interested in Mike the Death Whispers of Star Wars.
Sorry. No, I just get... I always make these death predictions because, I mean, what's better than a death prediction? And my chat always craps on me for it. They're like, "Mike, you're just trying to kill everybody off." I'm like, "Yeah, and what about it?"
Yeah.
You might be a Sith too. Welcome to the dark side, Mike.
So Dedra, if her plan is kind of what she says it is, you need the right insurgents to do something. But you can't just stage something. You need something actually to happen. Dedra would be focused on at least coaxing somebody to do something there. And she's obsessed with Axis, who we know is Luthen. But it could be Saw. Like if Saw is the one who's coaxed into committing a terrorist attack on Gorman or something. And because there's an Imperial armory there that they're building. And in 2 or 3, 4 years, it's built. And he attacks, loses his legs, messes everything up, invokes a genocide. Mon Mothma gets thrown out. It could be the perfect recipe for everyone having to hide on Yavin for however long they are, and causing them issues.
Well, what is interesting to me is with all the marketing, especially if the Gorman Massacre isn't next week, that means that all the Gorman stuff that we see in the trailers, which is the majority of the stuff, that will be from like the 7th, 8th, and 9th episode, which they don't usually do with these shows. But what I will say is we know certain characters are on Gorman. Like you said, it could be Saw's guys. We haven't seen him there yet. I mean, maybe that's the secret that they're keeping, which would be cool. But we know Cassian's there. We know Melshi is there. We know Dedra and Cyril are both there. So it's going to be this pretty big worlds colliding type meeting. But I wonder if the Empire is really going to try and force the rebellion's hand. And if, like you just mentioned, and I never thought of this before, what if like Dedra almost is trying to get Cassian and the rebellion's the rebels, sorry, like Axis, to show their head and make them come there. Like she somehow lures them to Gorman. That would be pretty cool.
Because she,
forces their hand.
like all of them, they're wildly competitive and personal.
Yeah.
So like, her boss telling her Gorman's a gift and you should take it and leave this other stuff and you can come back to it whenever. Like this is good for your career. She's not going to be able to leave it. You already know. It's obvious. So I don't know. I think she's gonna, and she's the only person who's on to them. She's the only, and she hasn't been able to show results according to the head of the ISB, but she's right and she knows it.
Yeah, and obviously, like Luthen is very well hidden, and that's the idea. That's why she can't find him. But she was in season 1 the only one looking, like the only one putting together the pieces of all these different things could be connected. And she was right, but obviously she hasn't gotten very far in the year that it's been since she got the job. But going back to the whole Gorman of it all, if that's true and they somehow like lure Cassian and the other rebels there to expose them some sort of way, it could be a trap. Because what if Cassian's there and we know he has like this blaster in a room or something and he might be blasting people? What if it's a trap and Cassian thinks they're going there for some mission that's not really the massacre, and then like there's just so many reinforcements that they didn't know were going to be there, and everybody just ends up dead except for Cassian and Melshi.
That's what I'm getting at. Is that there's going to be more to it than just some kind of staged insurgency. Like she could do her idea and get some hired rebel, proxy war BS, and then they have all the right in the world to go in there and steamroll it. But she's gonna want to include, now she has all this power and trust from Krennic.
Yeah,
like I can get access. He might believe in me here, and set them up.
My question to you guys is with Cyril, because we see him in season 1 where his whole thing on Morlana is Cassian did something wrong. He's pretty much a right or wrong type of guy. He's not really like the Empire all the way. He's more of a right and wrong type of character. Cassian murders 2 people. He wants to go get Cassian. Even when his officer tells him no, he still tries to do it. In season 2, if we know he's going to be in attendance at the Gorman Massacre, if he watches an event like that happen, do you think it's possible that he sort of his faith is shaken with the Empire and maybe
I could see that, but he's such a follower pushover where it's like, I just don't see him being a key aspect to the
I think you'd have to see it from Dedra.
Well, let me see it. Let me phrase it a little differently. Dedra's actress has been talking about how in the first season, Dedra's like, oh yeah, girl boss, cool. In season 2, she's got no redeeming qualities according to her. She goes, she's just pure evil darkness. What if that's too much for Cyril? And at the Gorman Massacre, maybe he doesn't like fully switch to the good side and help the rebels, but he does one specific thing, and that is reprogram a specific K2 droid to go help Cassian instead of hurt Cassian. Because there's a scene in a specific trailer where he's looking out across the courtyard and just horror, like his face is like, oh my God. And maybe that's him looking at this massacre happening and going, this is clearly wrong. And then he's in that room with all those K2 units. And what if he just sort of, flicks a switch or something? I don't
remember in Rogue One, do they explain? I mean, besides him being reprogrammed, I thought Cassian did that, but also, why do you think that he does that?
Well, I don't know. It'd be Cyril for sure. It would more so just be like he sees something horrible happen and he knows it's wrong, and then he tries to help.
And he's in the trailer with a room full of K2, like resting K2s.
Yeah, exactly. He's in that room, and it's like, why is he there? But the importance of K2, the lack of K2 in trailers, and how he turns to the light side is supposed to be gets reprogrammed, I guess. It's supposed to be a very important piece to the story, how him and Cassian sort of become best friends. And I mean, it would be kind of crazy if it was the guy who was hunting Cassian the whole first season, reprograms him to help him in the second season. Like, that would be crazy sort of writing, if you will. But the story itself has to be pretty meaningful. Not that one would be crazy meaningful to Cassian specifically, but he has to reprogram him somehow, or somebody has to reprogram him somehow.
This is a wild shot in the dark, but how much percentage chance is it that I forget his droid's name already, but we have
B2?
B2, like we have a solo situation where you get some parts of B2 into K2SO, so he cares about him quite a bit.
Yeah, my problem with that theory a little bit is the personalities of the two droids, because you're transferring the sort of just the droid parts. Like it should be the same personality of a droid if you're just transferring the memories and stuff over. And K2 is very, very different than B2. Honestly, though, B2 is sort of sidelined at the end of these 3 episodes. They leave him behind.
That's what I'm saying. Like, they're gonna have to come back for him.
Yeah, that's poor B2. But going back to K2, I like the theory that Nemik's manifesto is sort of programmed into K2, and that's why he's a rebel, because he has that information in his memories of Nemik's manifesto, because they really focused on season 1 with making sure Cassian got that manifesto. Like, that was a very important piece of the story in season 1. So I think that it would be pretty meaningful. And again, we're talking about how can you make K2's reprogramming a meaningful thing to Cassian. Well, if a character like Nemik, who gives him this manifesto about being a rebel, and he's really a big part of him joining the rebellion in season 1, and that's programmed into K2, and that's why he loves Cassian so much. That's why he's a rebel and not an Imperial droid. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm excited to see when they bring him in. I think that'll be pretty fun. But I agree with you, Mike. Sorry, Nick, but I think that like L3, when if you read the book from a certain point of view, when R2 is in there switching over, to jump into hyperspace from the original 3, they talk about her attitude in there, and so you get that attitude. And I think B2 is this little humble, loving, wants to help everybody, misses everybody, where K2 is just like, F it, let's go. What? Oh, I'm going to tell you I don't like you. Oh, I like you. So I think that would be a little bit of a conflict. But I like B2, so I want to see something happen with him. And unfortunately, I think they're going to come back, or they're just going to sort of leave it. And same with the whole sister theory. Is like, is this going to come out somewhere? We haven't even touched on it. Not that we touched on everything in these 3 episodes. But is that going to come out somewhere? Because they did sort of start this whole series with him trying to find his sister. So I think it'll be interesting if it's just they just don't do anything with it and we just put it by its side, or it does come up again.
Well, I thought with this first 3 episodes that foresty planet was going to be Kenari, and it wasn't. It was obviously Yavin 4. So that sort of put a giant wrench in my theory that the sister arc will come into play in the 2nd season. So I don't know if it still will. That would be such, I don't know, a weird thing to just leave behind, But B2 is, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if we just left him there on Mina Rao and he never came back.
Yeah.
It would suck, because he's a great character, but like, I don't know. We'll see. But I will go back to K2 specifically. Having watched Rogue One yesterday, he's very much a Cassian droid. He's a rebel, but he's a Cassian droid. Like, he does everything Cassian says. Not really what the rebellion says, but more so Cassian. So he's specifically programmed pretty much to Cassian. Like, he's like, "Oh, Jin, I'll be with you. Cassian said I had to." Like that type of stuff. So how those two become like best friends, it's gonna be a very important piece of the 2nd season.
Yeah, that's why I said it's a shot in the dark that B2 is K2. Yeah. But man, you plug that manifesto into B2 and harden him up a little bit.
Yeah. K2 is more chopper than anything.
Yeah, right.
That's true, yeah.
No, and I don't know. I think I said this when the last time we talked about Andor, but like, Cyril programming the droid would be a very cool way of him finally just doing something other than, like fake police work and all that kind of stuff. And
I don't know. I like him being a toady.
I don't think he's gonna die, but I think he's gonna. I think I said this before, like suffer a different kind of death. Like he's gonna become insignificant to the Empire. He's gonna become insignificant to the thing he believes in, or like this whole thing that's in the back of his head all the time, Cassian Andor. It's that whole pursuit's gonna be killed off in him. And I think part of it's gonna be because he's not interested in what Dedra's gonna have to do. And if you're right, if what she's saying, like you said, Mike, if Dedra becomes the worst, I don't think Cyril has it in him.
Yeah.
And I think he's gonna view it as wrong and like, I catch bad guys and you're setting this, so
Yeah, I don't think he can stand up to her. I mean, he was laying on the bed with his mother,
or
and now she's his new mother. Like you have to look at that like line of thinking too. It's like she's mom now.
Yeah.
So what if they go to Gorman? Dedra obviously isn't telling him what is going on with her, like in her new job. Obviously, there's no way. So he brings his mom.
I can see it.
Brings his mom to beautiful
Absolutely.
Gorman, and then a massacre occurs, and that would be enough to, do it for me.
It could be.
know?
And when the first scene between Dedra and Cyril in maybe episode 1 or 2, when Dedra's back from her secret trip, and Cyril's like, "Oh, you're back already?" She's like, "Yeah, it was a quick meeting or whatever." And he's like, "Yeah, like the top secret one or whatever." Like he doesn't know, and he can sort of tell that he wants to know, but he like can't know. So maybe they're planting the seeds of something like that, possibly.
And Gorman, we just were told it's a wonder of the world. Like everyone should go see it. It's awesome. So why not bring his mom?
One theory that was brought up in my chat once, and it would just be so funny and almost on point for the character of Cyril, is what if by the end of season 2 he gets a promotion to the Death Star, and then we just know he dies?
That'd be awesome. It'd be so good.
He could fail upwards the whole show.
Yeah,
that's the other thing too.
I've worked with some people like that.
Yeah, that'd be so funny if he just like, "Oh, I got a promotion to the Death Star." He just dies in The New Hope.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
That'd be pretty great.
I think some of the theories, I know there was some people talking about Dedra switching over. I think she's going to be evil to the very end. I think that's her personality. And I think that, like you were saying with Cyril, it might be a little bit different, and he might be like, "Oh, wait a minute, I like to do what's right." I mean, again, even with Cyril, he was doing the right thing. He was looking for people that, this guy that murdered these 2 guys. He had no idea who Cassian was or what was going on or anything like that. He was trying to uphold the law.
He wasn't even working for the Empire, really. He was working for corporate security.
Right. Yeah, and it will be crazy because Dedra is obviously not in Rogue One, and a lot of those characters borderline, will they die, will they not die? It would be pretty wild if Krennic sort of kills Dedra in the same way that Krennic gets killed by Tarkin, and Tarkin dies in the Death Star, sort of in a way. But so it's like a chain of command. It just keeps going up and up and up and up. Like Tarkin kills Krennic with the Death Star, Krennic kills Dedra, and so on and so forth.
I love that they brought up Tarkin for sure.
Yeah,
kind of cool.
Immediately brought up Tarkin. Palpatine had a meeting with Palpatine, Yularen. Yeah, it was pretty cool.
It'll be interesting. So the person that Luthen talks to at the end of season 1, is that his brother, or is that just someone that's in the Empire that's part of the Rebel Alliance as well? The guy that's in the elevator that comes down.
Oh, that's
an
operative of his. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
So it's just an operative.
Yeah.
It's just somebody that's
undercover at the ISB.
Okay.
Yeah. Which is basically really valuable to Luthen because
sure,
he's probably one of his most valuable assets.
Yeah. But now we're like a year later. Does he have more of those assets? Like
Of course
sort
he
of
does.
Yeah. Can't just
Oh,
have the
yeah.
one.
How did Cassian get that position? Like, how did he
Exactly.
get in that building? How did that girl that was there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can really tell the rebellion's growing quite large just at the
And
beginning of the season.
they casually, like Clea casually says something about that mission from the first episode, which was like one of our teams in there got him out, or like one of our
Yeah.
teams said he got out.
Yeah.
And so they got tons of people, but there's also like trillions of people in this whole empire machine, and all you need
True.
is like teams where you need them, and then as Dedra says, make it so random that it's not random.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, I thought it was neat. Sorry, just
No, go.
what Derek was saying about that beginning episode, or that beginning scene when Cassian is talking to her, and yeah, she works for the Empire, but she also it was a job. She was there. She's she's not a horrible person. It just she was there. It was a job. It's the Empire. It is what it is. I've had a good time here. She had a friend or whoever that was her supervisor or whatever that walked through,
Yeah, he's
just
cute.
before the whole thing goes down, right? And says something to her. So again, I think they try to show you that yes, it's all evil, but I think it's more of the upper echelon that we see it's evil, because these people down here, are just working. I got a job. I got to support my family, whether it's for the good guys or bad guys. I don't care at this point. I need to, so I thought that was just sort of cool how they sort of tied that in a little bit and made it like more realistic.
Well, that's what I was kind of getting at with the Death Star being that final nail that I have been taking for granted, because throughout this time, like if you're an average person in sort of the like core of the galaxy, you probably don't even care. You probably don't care about any of it. It doesn't affect you.
Yeah.
Like, well, new boss, same as the old boss, but whatever. His Senate seems like they don't get anything done, and he gets it done. Like, whatever. And I still got my representatives there. They probably don't do anything. I still have my job. I still have my stuff. But man, if you lived in a solar system that was a part of the Separatists, you're gone, man. Your planet's mined, and you're screwed. Anyone in that middle or outer part of the galaxy, screwed, because that's where they put the boot down. But if you're in like that civilized territory, I've never seen it. I've never, what wrong could be happening? War is over, whatever. And then at some point we have to see in these 4 years how regular people start going like, something's not right here. And the Death Star is just the final nail for me, honestly. But
and honestly, what's really cool about it is, like Ron was saying, you have those characters because all the Empire is obviously evil, but not everybody that's working for them is evil. So you have characters that can join the rebellion or be persuaded into the rebellion, like in Rebels when Ezra goes and becomes a cadet, and then he like convinces 3 of them to come join the rebellion. Like, there's people who aren't fully immersed into the Empire that can sort of be helped, I guess.
Well, even look at Luke Skywalker in A New Hope.
Yeah, wants to join the Empire.
Well, I don't, it's not like I like the Empire. I hate it, but there's nothing I can do about it.
Yeah.
And he wants to join the Imperial Academy simply because it's the only way it's going to get him to go somewhere. Otherwise, he's going to be stranded on this shitty planet forever. And he and the entire planet and everyone around there knows that they've laid the boot down over there. And even still, he's like, well, if I can get into school, I'll look the other way. Like,
Yeah. So again, that's sort of what I'm saying with the difference between Cyril and Dedra. And actually, these first 3 episodes paint the picture very greatly with the whole conversation between Dedra and her mom and Cyril's mom, where Cyril's mom, Edie, is talking about how, his dad left, but he had the loving care of his mom and the compassion of his mom and all this stuff. And then she's like, what about your family? And Dedra's like, I didn't have a family. I was taken in by the Empire when I was 3, and the Empire is all I've ever known. So I think Dedra, on the one hand, is full Empire, going full dark side. It's all she ever knew was the Empire, and that's it. Cyril, on the other hand, grew up with a loving mother, with compassion and all this. And he's a delicate boy, as she puts it. And
loving is used lightly.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So, but he has that back story of having actual a parent in a loving environment to an extent, and Dedra does not. So where she can go down a very dark path, Cyril might not follow, and that's sort of, I guess, what
Or
getting at.
maybe the trailer where she's, it looks like she's getting force choked. Maybe Cyril finds that he gets so angry that he has force ability and he is doing it.
Oh my god! Somebody put on my, I have not fact checked it yet, which is crazy. I had to go to sleep, but somebody put on my comments on one of my breakdown videos that at a certain time when Clea gets back to the gallery and she's going to turn on the lights, she just goes like this and turns on the lights. I got to go back and check it out, but they said they watched it like 20 times and they were like, she definitely uses the force to turn on the lights in the gallery. I was like, what? What are we talking about?
Is it when they do that close up of the Plo Koon style mask?
No, it's when she enters the back room.
When she goes through the switchboard.
Got it.
Yeah, before she gets to the switchboard. I don't know. I just, I got to check it out. I haven't fact checked it yet, but yeah,
I did like
have some
the
force.
Plo Koon thing was pretty cool.
The
Plo
what?
Koon thing was awesome.
Plo Koon, when that camera just goes by, so you can just make sure enough to see what it is.
Mhm.
Yeah, plus right before it was Padme's head thing.
I was gonna say there's a lot of Naboo stuff in there too, and then all the Gungan shields and there's a lot.
That was something I was gonna say. My brain is so all over the place. So everything Luthen says, I latch onto like a freaking, I don't know, something that latches onto things. But when he's talking to, yes, thank you, sure, something very latchy onto. No, so when he's talking to Erskine, I think his name is, the guy who works for Mon Mothma, and the conversation they're having is, his dad was a Syndrellan. He was born on Naboo. His mom was a Gorman. And it's such a very throwaway conversation, but Luthen is so intrigued with that. And he's like, huh. And it's almost like Gorman, we know, is coming eventually. Naboo, we have all the connections to the Gungan shields and the Padme Amidala stuff with the gallery. And obviously we're on Syndrella right now. So it's like this weird, just random conversation between Luthen and this guy. And it's like, will this be important later? I don't know. And then there's another conversation, another complete throwaway scene where Luthen is talking to this Syndrellan at the wedding, and his son is right there, and he's like, oh yeah, like all these other Syndrellans, he's in the Navy or whatever. And he's like, oh, where are you stationed? And he goes, oh, steer guard, but we're all being transferred. And he goes, oh really?
Where?
And then, like, cuts away. Yeah, where? Yeah, like he's always in the mode of just finding things out, and maybe that will become something later. Steer guard was already in season 1.
Where Krieger died.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So he's like, "Oh, you're moving away from there? What's going on?" It's awesome.
See, I was waiting for them when he brought up Naboo and Gorman. I was like, say Andor or Alderaan, not Andor.
Yeah.
Say Alderaan. I'm like, say Alderaan. Say it.
Well, I was actually waiting for him to say something about himself. Tony Gilroy has said that in season 2 we will learn about Luthen's backstory, and I think that still has some sort of importance. I don't think he's a Jedi or anything like that, but where he's from and sort of how he's getting 25,000-year-old Rakatan stuff, like what's going, like how? What is this guy? He's running a rebellion while also being able to get all these crazy artifacts across the world. How is that possible?
Does he know Sheev?
Does he know Sheev? Some people, the whole he's Palpatine's brother and type thing. Like, I don't know about that, but
I don't know if he's brother, but I'm wondering if he has a connection.
Well, if they're both from Naboo, maybe, because Palpatine's
he would
from
definitely
Naboo.
know him if everybody knows who Sheev is, but like he would definitely know of his rise if they're both from Naboo.
But the problem would be then Palpatine would know Luthen.
Yeah,
and maybe that's how he dies.
That would be great. That would be so crazy. Palpatine walks into the gallery and he's like, I've let you go long enough. I've sensed this disturbance in the force from this gallery, and they just that would be so insane.
I mean, come on. We all want to see Palpatine at least one good time.
It'd be so crazy.
Nathan says that the first one, he says something about Dedra as the scapegoat, and I saw you react to that, Mike. I think
Yeah.
that is a good possibility that she is going to be the scapegoat and try to cover it up if something goes wrong. If they can get enough people in there to make it look like, oh, this was the rebellion or something like that, where it has to be done. But I think that they will use her as a scapegoat. And then he said something, the one that's up there now with Luthen. I don't think he's from Naboo. We don't know where he's from yet, correct?
Yeah, we don't know. We don't know
so
yet.
It'll be interesting. And I think that is going to be cool. Hopefully we can find out where he gets some of these artifacts from, because as the four of us have seen and all these things, it's just so cool. And the Easter eggs that he has of all of these things from pretty much every movie that's before, this happened, the prequels, and Clone Wars and things like that. So I think it's pretty cool that we're going to find out what's going on with Luthen. And hopefully for me with that, because they've been talking about that, I hope it's a little bit more than when we found out about Jude Law's character. We were hoping to get a big thing in Skeleton Crew about Jude Law and his background, and we got enough. But I'm hoping with Luthen, because he is such an intricate and I think important. And Mike, you're right. You have to listen to every word or every conversation that he's in. I think there's something that's in there that's going to happen later, or it's a clue to something else.
And with all the artifacts, there is one other person that comes across a lot of ancient artifacts. That's Cal Kestis.
Yeah.
That would be insane.
That'd be great.
We want it. We all want it. I need that poncho.
Well, what's funny too is the artifacts he comes across. Yes, a lot of them are from Naboo, or Nubian, if you will. Nubian. No, so it's all over the place, though. It's not just Nubian stuff. It's Plo Koon's mask. It's World Between Worlds looking carvings. It's Mandalorian armor.
Sith armor.
It's Sith armor. It's well, Starkiller's not canon, but Starkiller's mask. It's Jedi and Sith holocrons. It's the Twi'lek thing that Harrison Dula has in Rebels. It's just all over the place, and it's just like it can't possibly be just random. Like there has to be something going on with this guy, and he's the most important character for the rebellion. Like he's the leader of the rebellion.
This is not a theory or anything. I'm just saying, like, it would be beneficial if you were him to just be really good at forging, and everyone checks its authenticity through you.
Yeah.
And so you're getting what presumably millions of dollars for all these upper crusters to fund the rebellion, because you're like, I mean, damn, look at this thing. 25,000 years old. There's nobody who would know what it is but me. And
that is true. But that might actually be how he funded the rebellion.
Yeah,
I think they're real too.
Real, but he's
again, this is where I think Cal could come in, because if you look at the storyline in the games, he's in all of these like ancient temples and old places, and he's seen like all those visions and different things. Not saying that that's what's going to happen. I honestly, I don't think we're going to get that, but I could see how it would be feasible.
At least those types of people, like Lor San Tekka, who's the old guy in The Force Awakens.
Yeah.
Around this time, he's starting a church.
Yeah.
That's like Church of the Force, where like, hey, they're all wrong. The Jedi are the good guys. Let's study them. And they go to these places and they get artifacts and all that kind of stuff. And also, Luthen's going around meeting with people for like rebel meetings. Look at all the stuff that's in there. Naboo has a vested interest to say screw the Empire. Ryloth has a vested interest to say screw the Empire. Any leftover Wookiees definitely have vested. Like all these places have like a reason to say screw you. Like if you help us, we'll give you some of this stuff to keep up your ruse.
Maybe.
There are ways he could do it. I think he's probably on the tail end of his artifact dealing career, and moving into less adventures and more war.
I mean, it was when he showed up. I'm surprised to see you here.
Yeah.
I really don't know.
Which I thought, well, look who he was invited by, and I think that's a lot. That has a lot to do with it, along with his gallery for the money to fund all this stuff.
Yeah. I
It's
don't
perfect
know.
cover.
Yeah, it is.
Oh,
I really don't know if I don't know why I just get this weird feeling that Luthen's not going to make it to Yavin 4. Like I don't know what picturing him on Yavin 4 seems wrong. I don't know what it is, but obviously his death is going to have to be a very meaningful one.
He
Yeah,
obviously
that's what I
knows
was gonna
about
say.
Yavin 4 because he sent Cassian there to do the drop.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, true.
So he has to know about it.
But right now it's not really a base. Seeing that
That we know
convert
of.
into a base will be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Converting that
Or
into
maybe
a
they
base.
do it in his honor. I don't know.
The
Maybe
Luthen-
that's where he's from.
Yavin 4, that'd be crazy.
It'd be actually really cool.
It would be
It'll
cool.
be interesting to see what these other rebels, if we see them again at all. The ones that were still left there when Cassian left, and how they fit into that picture, or is it just it's just something that we needed for Cassian to get introduced to Yavin 4, and now we all know about it, and now these guys go by.
Yeah. I don't know if they're going to survive. They were starving to death a little and being eaten by that
Yeah.
the
I think-
Yavian.
I think
the
it's more of
hippo
like a message of like, look how all over the place the rebellion is right now, and it's insane.
right. Well, because
But-
Cassian said you weren't here 3 days ago.
Yeah, and say like this is all out of control right now, and by the end of the show, they're gonna have to get it together. And here's a little gift for you for going through the rock paper scissors match. Look where they are, and look where we're gonna end up. Like maybe a bow on it. I don't know if I totally see. Derek, what you said, like one of them being like, that place would, a place that would be good to go is this Yavin 4 place.
Yeah.
Like that was pretty remote, and ain't nobody going to do a ground assault on Yavin 4. Like, how are they even going to find us? And the only way they can really get to them is by having a planet killing orbiting station. So
that's true.
Yeah.
I love all the speculations and build up. It makes me so happy.
Oh, going back to Cal Kestis, because yes, all over the place.
We all want to see him.
I don't think he'll be in Andor season 2. I will go out and say that.
Either.
Yeah, but it's been since 2018 since the first game came out or something like that, and
all right.
Yeah, so it's been 7 years, give or take, and he hasn't come to live action yet. We're obviously still waiting for the third game. But when you look at it, it's more likely he's going to show up in the Mandoverse, like in this whole sort of post-original trilogy time period. And his connection to, obviously, the Jedi with Ahsoka and Luke Skywalker and all that, he could appear because of just plain and simple that. But also Thrawn and the Night Sisters. Merrin, his girlfriend, is a Night Sister.
Mm-hmm.
But not to go way too off topic from Andor, it's almost becoming now, since it's been so long, where is he? Like now you're going to have to explain why he's not involved yet, why he's been so uninvolved with the events of Andor and the events of Rebels and the events of all these different things happening in the galaxy. Like, where is he? And that's sort of now becoming more of an issue because he's not appearing. And it's going to even need more explanation. So I don't think it'll be in Andor season 2. But explaining why he's not in Andor season 2 is probably going to happen.
Yeah.
Where does where are we left off with all the fallen Jedi or Fallen Order stuff?
Well, he ends up on Jeddah.
Yeah, and like they've done the Tanalorr thing. Like, are they able to go there? Like that planet?
Who, Cal?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, no, that's where the second game ends, is on Tanalorr, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but then there's the speculation of Jeddah because of Garrus Path.
Mm-hmm.
Because
you end that last mission in there.
Yeah, you end it on there and you bury the others. Yeah, I don't know. He's clearly involved with the hidden path in the game. Takes place at the same time as the Kenobi series, so about 9 years before A New Hope. So we're still sort of behind on his story, I guess.
Wouldn't it, if we were gonna just tease him and introduce him before he comes into live action, wouldn't Shadow Lord be a good place to?
That was the other thing I thought because of Dathomir.
Yeah,
I mean, he is on Dathomir.
Yeah.
The only problem with that, though, is I feel like Shadow Lord is going to take 5-6 seasons to get to
Yeah.
that point in the timeline.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be 1 year. It starts 1 year after Clone
ready.
Wars. So you have
Mhm.
so long to get there.
I'm ready for it.
I
I
know.
will wait.
I really think that it could be a 5-6 season show. They have enough content there and enough time there to give us some incredible Maul stuff. That see, Ahsoka season 2 is just this crazy place in my heart. But Maul is definitely the number 2 from last weekend of most hyped projects, because from the people who saw the trailer there, they pretty much said this is the best that Star Wars animation has looked visually.
Mm.
Like they've perfected the sort of Clone Wars Bad Batch type style. But I also heard from StarWars.com that it's a new style of animation, so it's a little bit different than the Clone Wars style. But even still, like just Maul, full bad guy story, underworld, bounty hunters, like Darth Talon possibly, or a canon version of that character. It's gonna be so good.
Yeah. Now with Cal and Jeddah, bringing that up again, with Jeddah getting blown up and his connection with it in the game, do you think that could potentially be a way that leads him into one of the other stories, like even the Mandoverse of like, oh, he was wanting to basically retire and go and fade out and live in peace? That could bring you back.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, I think Cal's biggest connection, if he's going to be brought in, would be Luke Skywalker, because we see so little Luke in the Mandoverse. So if we sort of got introduced to Cal through Luke, and he's sort of helping Luke with the Jedi Temple and maybe helping set it up or whatever, that would make a lot of sense, because that would make him connected to a character that doesn't really show up much, but it would make sense because Cal's pretty much, well, he was a Jedi at the Jedi Temple, and he's much like Luke, almost dealt with the dark side and the light side and the balance between the two, and almost like remembering how the Jedi were wrong in a way, and how to not make those same mistakes over again. So I feel like Cal Kestis would be a huge help to Luke when he's creating his Jedi Order. And like you said, Cal Kestis is going around the galaxy, getting all those artifacts and finding all those Jedi things and temples and stuff like that. And Luke does the same thing after the original trilogy. So I feel like those two characters in particular could be pretty well connected. But my mind is just blown thinking about seeing Cal Kestis and Luke Skywalker on the same screen, so I don't even know.
Oh,
well, and to your point, like at
amazing.
that point, if it's in that timeline, Ahsoka's kind of got her own thing. Yeah. And from an audience perspective also, Ahsoka's kind of got her own thing. She already popped into the Mandoverse and then has her own show in the Mandoverse.
Yeah.
Luke's already popped in. You can't keep throwing Luke in there. So the way to bring in Cal Kestis to, say, the average audience is like, this guy has the stamp of approval from Luke.
Yeah.
And you can essentially view this character, if you don't know who he is like he's speaking for Luke Skywalker in a way.
Exactly.
Like it legitimizes him. And then we don't see Luke anymore because it's kind of a pain in the ass for them to keep bringing him in. And it's more Cal Kestis kind of has that role, like you said.
That would be cool.
Mm-hmm.
That's not that he's like speaking the word of Luke Skywalker, but you always kind of associate the two for the audience who might not know who he is or care. It kind of legitimizes him and doesn't pull from Ahsoka, doesn't pull from Luke Skywalker much, or pull from the game, but just like, if you want like solid Jedi stuff in this show, this is the guy. Like, this is the guy bringing it back.
And going completely off topic of Andor at this point, but Cal Kestis specifically.
Sorry.
No, it's awesome. With the third game being sort of in development right now, the character in what could allow Cal to sort of have a connection to somebody we already know and love would be Grogu, because Grogu goes off with Kelleran Beck at Order 66, but we don't know what happens after that until 28 years later when we see him with a bunch of pirates. So it's like, well, what happened with Grogu? Like, what was he doing that whole time? Maybe he runs in with Cal Kestis because of the hidden path and all that stuff, like connections there. So maybe he has a run-in with Grogu so that when he re-meets Grogu in the Mandoverse, he's like, oh, hey, I know you. Something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
I'm still waiting for Batu to show up in one of these.
I know, right? Yeah.
That's where my head originally went when instead of Yavin 4. I'm like, oh, are they in Batu?
Yeah, that would
be really cool.
That would be cool.
More Birch in the parks.
Yeah.
Hey, we're pulling up here on actually, we're over an hour and a half. So and I know we could go on forever. I know Mike's got to get to sleep, and and again, so everybody knows we will be doing this again next week. Whoever can make it, we'll try to get all 4 of us on here again and talk about the next year, next 3 episodes. So it'll be pretty exciting for Andor, and we will start to spin off on some other things. Again, I definitely want to talk about the new Maul series, the Starfighter, things like that we have coming up. But right now we're focusing on Andor. I think we killed it tonight. We talked about a lot of things. Again, there's spoilers here, and we're all going to be watching next week. So thanks you guys for coming on. Mike, a guy who loves Star Wars. Derek, living with the land speeder. It's me and Nick are here. So please make your comments. Check out the page. We'll have some more interviews coming up, but right now it's going to be pretty much all Andor and all live. So guys, thanks again for coming on tonight. Everybody that joined us, thank you for your questions and your interest. And we'll see you next week. May the Force be with you, and we'll see you then.
Thanks, guys.